there's a lot of, I could start with a definition of unity. The dictionary says unity, I could do that thing. I could do it. And then I could also talk about how the universe starts with the word uni, but that's out because now they're thinking it's a multiverse. So I got to throw that out the track, right? That's done. Science is always, moving a little bit ahead. I thought I would start with I don't know about you guys, but when I was a little girl, I was raised thinking that God was out there. And I was taught certain ways to, what's the thing? Genuflect. I was taught certain ways to get in a posture that wasn't quite comfortable and make sure that this God out there knew that I was possibly worthy of listening to. And that God out there might bless me with something if I was good enough, if I was smart enough, if I was a good enough girl. And then right around fourth grade, I think I realized that that might have been a way that society was trying to control me. Like to tell me something was out there watching me, like some, right? Like some sky, what was that sci-fi movie where the eye in the sky was watching everybody and it had the ability to do stuff? Like that was watching me and it would punish me if I was bad. I started thinking maybe that's the way that they're trying to control me. And I wasn't sure, and maybe it was blasphemous to think that. So when I think the word unity, I now know that in terms of religion and spirituality, what that means is you take the God that was out there that you were trying to get the favor from, and you realize that that God is in here. It's one with us. It never left us. It is in us, as us, through us. So what about the leap? Did you make that leap in fourth grade, Charlene? Heck no, I didn't make that leap. But what I did do is I called the nuns out on it. I said, question. So what you're saying is that God is like Santa Claus? And if I'm good, and then, you guys heard me talk about this if you've come a few times to church when I've talked, I didn't like that it was sort of conflated, that the spiritual being that was supposed to love me unconditionally, that once I got to a certain age and was able to go through certain rituals, then all of a sudden I'd be held accountable for this thing called sin, because apparently I was born in sin, and I was trying to make it all make sense. And so I didn't figure out I was one with all that is and one with God. And we'll talk about one with each other in a second, because that's harder. That's harder. But let's talk about one with God. Right around 20-something, I was really ready to listen, so I started reading some things, found Science of Mind, and they were talking about how God never left its creation. God never said, all right, I've got 7 days, or 6 days, and I get to rest. So I'm going to create this, this, and this, and I'm out. God's out. Dab out. That's not how it worked, right? God didn't. And so I started reading this in the books. I'm like, all this spirituality, all this training. I'm reading Edgar Casey, right? And I'm reading the dude that said, follow your bliss, Campbell. And then, of course, Ernest Holmes eventually. There was a path I took to get there. And every one of them was saying that creation happens. It didn't happen once. It's happening over and over and over and over again. And the fact that we have this mind that we can create with, we are creators of the small, which is our life, but we're replicating creation as a whole, which is all of life. So God creates by creating creators. And that's how God created. And I was like, oh, snap, that's interesting. Keep reading, keep reading, keep reading. And then I found out that I was responsible for the way my life looked. That was hard, right? Because my life didn't look so good, and I found I did that. But then the good news was, well, you could do something else. If you're creating this, you can do something else. Just keep choosing differently, because your mind is the thought that's making things happen. I was like, okay, I got that. I can do that. I can start thinking about things I want rather than things I don't want. But still, that's unity coming to me. It's starting to come my way, an awareness of oneness. But the oneness at that point was me being one with my Creator instead of saying God's out there, God was in here. Now, I know all of us are on some part of this spiritual journey. Some of this you can relate with. But there's a point where you realize it's not just about me. Anybody get there yet? Yeah? I keep getting there. I keep thinking it's about me. And then I realize there's other people on the planet too. So what about these other people? It turns out that spirit, so if I'm God, then you're God, and you're God, and you're God. Even the people I don't want to be God, there's people who are politicians, I'm like, "Arr." That's God happening too. So that's hard, and it can be hard if we forget who we really are. So when we go to these quotes, there's only they're suggesting I read this one to you, and this is pretty good. Love and Law from Ernest Holmes. There's but one God, one mind, one spirit, and one power. When I embody myself in my thoughts, selfishly, I am separating myself from that which I think would be my good. You may think this is a very subtle thing and could not be the reason for so much trouble. It's the foundation of most of our troubles. I am unconsciously separating myself from my good. Leah, can you hand me my purse? I'm going to get my fan out because this is good. I'm making myself sweat. I'm on fire. Thank you, sweetie. Okay, one moment, please. Talk amongst yourselves. What? It's okay to be real in front of all y'all. All right, technology. So, God as technology, right? Oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay. All right, so we're back. Now, so what does that mean? I embody myself in my thoughts selfishly. If I embody myself in my thoughts and I'm all selfish about it, then, I'm the opposite of one. And have you ever met someone who's really good at navel gazing? Have you been that person? I have. And how do you know that? So I was on my ministerial retreat. And I'm not going to say people were caught up in navel gazing, but there's a difference between those who are very serious and will debate with you every word that comes out of your mouth. They're just tiresome. And there's those of you, that are like me, and I met some kindred spirits whose entire, whole approach to life is this. I mean, if there was a meme, it's just happy. Happy. Now, I don't fake the happy. What used to happen in the past is I used to try to pretend to be serious so that you guys would take me seriously. And then I'm not sure what the experience was for others, but let's just say for me, I would speak, I would interact with people, and then I'd go home and go through every conversation, hoping I did it right, said it right, came off the right way. And it was tedious during that moment, and then after. My life sucked while I was doing it, and then after I did it. So I thought, what can I change? And I realized, what is it about me that I've rejected? What part of me do I not like? It's that hyper part, the part that everybody called me names when I was coming up. That's the part. Well, guess what? I'm going to go ahead and lean into it. Turns out, it's fine. Turns out, I teach a bunch of classes for IT, and people come up and thank me for not boring them to death. And I'm like, oh, thank God you like it, because I'm going to be like this either way. Thank God it works for you, because this is me. And other people, over the weekend, they came up and said, I just want to tell you, and I'm cringing, waiting for them to say, a minister does not behave in a certain way. I expected it. I'm like, I know, I probably shouldn't be. They said, keep that energy, you are amazing, I love it. And I'm like, yay, I can be me even as a minister? And that's when I met a bunch of other people who, I guess they came out to me as joyful. They're like, oh God, thank God. I met people, oh God, we had a party outside one of these people's rooms, and I brought my boombox, because I travel with a boombox, right? And I turn it on, and we're playing this song that's it's a line dance, and everybody's going left and going right. And I look up, and there's Ernest Holmes moving with us. Guess what? We had a little cutout, a silhouette. Him from the waist up as cardboard. It looked very good. It looked 3D. And they were putting it in front of the stage every time we had our sessions. Somebody had stolen Ernest Holmes' from the stage, and we were going to the left, to the right, now dip. I was like, hey, Ernie, hey, get it. It was crazy fun, and I said, oh my God, I'm home. I love that, and I'm sure not every minister in training was on that patio dancing, and that's fine. But what they didn't do was scold us for being on that patio. And so I'm not saying for you guys that you have to be like me, but please be you, because there's somebody else who's dying to be themselves, and it's kind of like you. And if you're not, showing up authentic, then if you're pretending, other people feel like they have to pretend too, I guess is what I'm saying. And we can tell, can't we? We can tell when somebody's kind of clenching all their muscles and kind of keeping it together. It just rings a little bit false. And so the best gift you can give is to get out of your navel and just look around and be who you are. I just think that that's really, really good for each of us. So now, losing a personal sense of responsibility. Now, a lot of us feel like when we come out of the navel gazing and they come out of the part of our spiritual path where it's all about ourselves. You come out and you look around and you realize, okay, there's other people, they're also part of the one. And there's a sense of responsibility that here's what Ernest Holmes says about that. When we are willing to lose a personal sense of responsibility, when we let go of the thought of isolation and we claim a real unity with God, then we lose the personal and we find the universal. When it's not all about me, I can look up and I find, oh my gosh, this universal truth. But remember, as the greater always includes the lesser, so the universal always includes the personal, which is the personification of itself. Now that, Ernest Holmes, right? That one sentence is like, what? You got to unpack that. The universal always includes the personal. So the idea here is that God is expressing as each and every one of us, right? The universal includes the personal. So it doesn't mean that if I personify parts of God that I then have cut myself off from the rest of God. No. In fact, Rumi says it this way. Rumi, where are you? Rumi is a Middle Eastern poet. Always has some good stuff. Oh, it's in my book that I marked up. It was, if I can remember it right, it was that we are not just a part. Like if you think of yourself as a drop in the ocean of God, that you are not that the ocean is in the drop, as opposed to the drop being in the ocean. The whole ocean is in that drop. So if you think about it metaphysically, well, think about science. When stem cells were discovered, stem cells are the very beginnings of all the cells in your body. A stem cell has all the possibilities of anything it needs it for. So if it could be a liver cell, it could be a heart cell. It could be the cell for the whatever kind of, hair, right? It could be anything. It's a stem cell that has all the possibilities. And then it's kind of like as at a certain point in gestation in the womb, those cells start to differentiate. Some of the stem cells say, I'm going to be an arm, and I'm going to go be part of the arm. And the other ones go, well, I'm heading over to the heart. See you later, dude. And it goes to be the heart. Now, that means that it differentiates enough so that it can do that particular job. What if we're all like, we all started out as like stem cells of God? What if we're the cells of the body of God? Each and every one of us started out as a stem cell of God, and then as we moved through whatever stages that we go through, some invisible, some visible, we started to differentiate enough so that I became this cell called Charlene, and you became the cell called Kristen, and you became, right? What if all that is what we are, and we're living and moving and having our being in this organism called God? God's living, and we're just the cells making it happen. It's an idea. I'm just thinking. Chew that around for you. In fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson, my favorite scientist ever, he said we're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, and to the rest of the universe atomically. And it's like a tapestry where each and every one of us are threads, and we're all kind of intertwined together to make this beautiful thing. And we need each and every one of us to make the thing. So, and some authors caution us, because even though dualism in religion, which I talked about when we first opened this discussion, dualism had to do with two supreme powers, one being good and one being evil. We humans like that. We like the antagonist and the protagonist, right? But if you ever watched any soap opera, they swap turns. They swap positions, right? The antagonist becomes the protagonist. Oh, he's not a bad guy. He's just misunderstood. Or, oh, she's not, she's good. Oh, no, she's evil. Oh, no, she's good. It's interesting. We like the polar, right? We like the polarity of good and evil. Once we move past that, sometimes even the metaphysical people will say that there's a little bit of duality inside metaphysics, because what you'll hear talked about is the material versus the spiritual, as if they're two separate things, right? We say thoughts become things, but we should say thoughts are things. They don't become, one doesn't become the other. They're both sides of the same coin. So that's deep. Let me let you sink that in, because if there is no difference between the material and the spiritual, well, that explains a lot. Think about the phenomena. I know each and every one of us here has had something that makes you go, dee-dee-dee-doo, right? And I'm sure if we went through the room, I won't do it, if I handed that mic, each one of you would say, yeah, this one time I was doing this, and then that happened. And there's no explanation. There's something going on. That is the thing where the physical and the spiritual are so intertwined that you kind of can't tell the difference a lot of the times. And people say that when we dream or when we vision, when we get our brain going, it can't tell the difference between real and not real, because it's a thin veil. Let's just put it that way. So let's talk about this human experience then. Deepak Chopra says that there are two indications that show that you've arrived. You've arrived at realizing unity. You realize there is only one God that's not outside you and in you. There's only one. And then you realize that metaphysical, that dualism there in terms of material reality and spiritual reality are one. Once you get to understand that that's true, there are two things that'll happen. One, you stop worrying. Things don't bother you anymore. You become lighthearted and joyful. It's a sign. So if you're lighthearted and joyful, you're on your way, because you'll realize that you worrying about it's not going to make it better, right? Part of that understanding, that thing just lifts off of you. The second one, you experience increased meaningful coincidences, otherwise known as increasing of those in life, and increased experiences of synchronicity, what you were just talking about. They accelerate to the point of experiencing the miraculous. You're like, okay, now wait a minute. Oh my gosh, really? The miraculous. And it's funny, it does start small. If you've ever been to a class with us, it starts as a parking spaces, right? You're going to manifest parking spaces because you put your attention on it, and then you say, oh, I guess it works. And then you elevate to something else, and then something else, and then you become that person that just knows that you shouldn't worry because it'll be all right. You just know it. And everybody around you might be like, shouldn't you be worried right now? Why aren't you worried? You should be looking up some stuff on Google. What's your plan? And to some degree, there is some work we must do. But after we've done all that we know we must do, you let God do it. And you just expect it to show up with a sense of authority. And then life does that for you. And it's really weird. I'm reading a book. I'm not really ready to talk about it yet. I'm trying to absorb it. But the whole book is about, are we living in a simulation? That's the book. So I'm like, if we are, that makes a lot of sense. So, change the channel? Well, you can, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. Where you put your attention, that's what it comes. And so my final thing to talk about is just my experience here with you guys and then at ministerial school, and I'm reading a bunch of books. They make me read them, and it's kind of terrifying. So many books. But the more I read about this stuff, the more I'm thinking about this stuff, and I have to just leave the questions open. I mean, there's just, it's a lot. And depending on the author of the book, there's a certain, you know how when you're in a grammar school, maybe middle school, they teach you how to spot bias, I think it is. So there's a difference between fact and opinion, and that some people, the way they write about the whole movement from the 1800s, there's a lot of skepticism. This one book I read, a really thick book, it's called Madame Blavatsky's Baboon. I don't know why they called it that. It catches attention. It was assigned to me, so I read the entire book. It was written by a person who talked about every single Enlightenment founder from the very beginning up until now, and how it went through the Renaissance and all the different parts of political history. And he's pointing out all the fraudulent pieces of it, as if each and every spiritualist had a fraudulent slant. But I'm thinking, as I'm reading this, I'm like, surely somebody had an experience, though. Like, can we separate the badly behaving humans from the actual thing itself? Like, do we always have to? Because I know for me, and I know you guys may have as well, I've had spiritual unfoldment. And you all have had, I've heard you guys talk at different things. You felt it. So just because the person that wrote the book feels like, I must point out that this part might be false and that part might be false. Yes, but does the whole thing have to be? I don't know. I guess they assigned us that because they want us ministers in training to see it from all points of view. But what you can't take away is my knowingness. And I found a group of people that figured out how to say it so that I go yes inside. And there's no part of it that has me abdicating all of my personal belongings and giving all my stuff to some guru, and that's not what this is. So I'm okay with it, but I noticed as I read it, I had to keep doing that in my brain. I had to read it. I want to take in that other point of view, but I also want to include what I know to be true. And I know you guys read the news. And I know this happens for you. When you read stories, I want you to read the other side too. I do. I want you to see, because as we go out, that person, that other, is one with us. They are part of us. That's God right there. Some part of their logical brain is actually, read the flat earther story. See what they think. And not in a judging sense, just to understand where they're coming from so that you can be even more fully informed and fully rounded, and so that your compassion can come out. So when you look at the people who have differing views, and when I look at other people who have differing views, I can look at them with my eyes that say, Namaste, I see the God in you. Even though I don't know what you're talking about. I see the God in you, and I honor the highest in you because I know that that's there. So as we land on that final point, knowing that we are only one, we are always one with all that is, I invite you to turn within. Yes, there's only one power. There's only one life. That power that holds the entire cosmos in balance. That which holds my life in balance. That which involves the interaction and the gravity that holds the connections between us in balance. I know that harmonious sense of humanity, of connectedness, of life, of love, the power that binds us, I know that sense that runs deep within us is the truth. Anything unlike that, any sense of fear, separation, worry, or doubt, any attempt to manipulate, control others. I know that those things are not the truth about each and every one of us. The truth is that all is well. There's a part of us that has never been hurt, never been harmed, and that is connected to the divine at all times. That inside us is ready and willing and available to be called forth at any time. And I know that we turn within and we cultivate that relationship with the divine. We seek it out in times of good and in times of quiet and in times of stress. We seek that out because it's already who we are. We don't want to be distracted by the comings and goings of phenomena. We deserve to commune with the Most High. And so in this space, I know that each and every one of us is ever awakening, ever unfolding, ever experiencing themselves as one with all that is. And I know as we move throughout the week that we allow ourselves to see in others the divine. We look into each other's eyes with the sense of namaste. We find ways to appreciate the oneness, the most high inside the other. Because as we do that, life is good. I give thanks for this awareness. I know that every person here is blessed, and the people within the sound of my voice are experiencing and unfolding ever and ever more. I thank you, God. Thank you, life. I say, and so it is. Amen. Now we hear